Hello, and welcome to our June monthly care partner presentation. Today, we will be hearing from Amanda Mendez, who is an occupational assistant and driving rehab specialist from the Chantilly Driving Rehab Center. Our mission here at Insight Memory Care Center, we provide specialized care, support, and education for individuals in all stages of memory or cognitive impairment, their partners, and the community. And our vision, a community where those living with memory and cognitive impairment and their care partners can achieve the highest quality of living. We are a leader in dementia care in Northern Virginia. Insight is a nonprofit started in 1984 that supports families on their dementia journey. Care, we specialize in adult day programs for people in all stages of their dementia journey. Connections, we build relationships and supporting care partners in their journey. And with creativity, dementia experts sharing their knowledge and resources because every journey is unique. Supporting families in their journey, Insight is a nonprofit organization that relies upon the generosity of people like you to engage the people with dementia and support their care partners. One of our family members said, I support Insight because I think this is one of the premier organizations to help people with dementia and their caregivers. I'm extremely impressed with their staff and services provided. So again, let's welcome Amanda Mendez. Go ahead.
So my name's Amanda. My background, or a little bit about me, I am a licensed and certified occupational therapy assistant, as well as a certified dementia practitioner and driving rehabilitation specialist. So I've worked in various settings all across the spectrum of healthcare services, so home health, skilled nursing facilities, acute rehab facilities, and I even did some marketing, but ultimately came back to my therapy ways and wanted to provide patient care and see that growth and progress in people and help people. So our topic today, dementia and driving. So I want to start off by saying, this is obviously a very, very touchy topic, right? But because of the progressive nature of dementia, it's not a matter of if someone will stop driving, it's when. So it is very, it's very gradual, right, progression with dementia, and very unpredictable too. So driving will eventually come up. So the challenge, I think, with dementia is preserving one's independence while simultaneously protecting the safety and balancing that of not only that individual, but everyone else on the road, their loved ones, and such. So I think the theme of this is kind of think about balancing independence and safety. So we're looking at like that line. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how to guide the conversation with a family member or loved one who has dementia. And then also, ultimately, when is it no longer safe to drive? So we'll kind of go into guiding the conversation. So I think the biggest point to kind of highlight and to keep in mind is when someone gets that diagnosis is to approach the conversation as early as possible. It will only set up, the family, the loved one for success, set them up for success when it comes to, potentially transitioning or retiring from driving. So it's important to talk as openly as possible about it. There's probably, guaranteed going to be a mix of emotions when it comes to that topic. It's driving is a rite of passage. It's a form of independence that, we all we just do. We're just so used to doing. And then, just like taking away someone's walking abilities, that's a big sense of independence that they're losing. So it's important to address those feelings, share those feelings, and just talk as openly as possible and honestly about them. They might not be, always nice things or words that are being shared, but try to be as open and understanding about it as possible. So you can, start the conversation as gently as possible that you are concerned, come at it from a point of concern. So not only for your loved one, your family, the dynamic, but everyone else on the road as well. And then I will refer to this publication very often in this presentation. So this is a publication called At the Crossroads, and it's from the Hartford. They're a great resource. So you can actually order these. They have several different guidebooks, and you can actually order them free of charge. So you just go to thehartford.com//lifetime, and you can order these free resources. So this one specifically is called Family Conversations About Alzheimer's Disease, Dementia and Driving. So in here, one way to help guide the conversation, and I kind of highlighted a page here. So there is a conversation planner. And so really what that is, it's how do you associate, good feelings with this conversation or positive feelings, not like a loss or negative. So that's in here, it's a little exercise and worksheet. And then also just talking about driving in general, discussing potential warning signs and what to look out for that may indicate that someone is, that the skills of driving are impacted by the dementia diagnosis. And we'll touch a little bit more on specific warning signs in a little bit, but those are also actually in here. Warning signs. And then it's worth encouraging your family member with dementia diagnosis, or even just, I'd say like 55 and older in general, to look into their auto insurance companies and ask about accident prevention courses that could lower monthly premiums for their insurance policy. So I know AARP is a really good one, but I think various forms of insurance companies have something like this or similar, so it's worth asking about. And then also from NHTSA, or National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, there's a self-assessment questionnaire you can take online too. And then another thing to bring up during this conversation is the fact that we live in a very affluent and advanced society to where we have all of these resources if someone is a non-driver. So something else to consider and bring up, there's no easy or right way to talk about it, but these are just a few potential tips. So, we talked about like the non-drivers and what's potentially out there. So you're going to look at, like rideshare, businesses, grocery delivery services, there's medication delivery services. So really that's kind of goes into maybe transitioning from driving. So say someone has, they do believe they're impacted, or their skills are being impacted by this dementia diagnosis, and they're no longer 100% safe on the road. So we're going to look at different, approaches or ways to transition from that driving. So one way is like a progressive approach. So maybe starting to have that person be a passenger more, have that person driving shorter distances in general, or limit night driving or highway driving. So also, that's part of reducing the need to drive. So say this person's doctor's office is 20 miles away, it's probably most likely not the case, but so reducing that need. If someone's going to a pharmacy that's 10 miles away and they're needing medication, see if there's a delivery option, or if they're, a store that they're going to. It's reducing the need to drive. If they are doing an extra task that they've been doing weekly, like going to pick up the dog food or, anything like that, it's how can we reduce the need to drive so that that person doesn't feel like they have to constantly be on the road or going to do one thing or another, when maybe somebody else could do it, support from the community, or delivery options. And then going back to the Hartford publication, this is a really, really good one I like, and I'm going to kind of read it over. So this is an exercise you can do. It's called Agreement with My Family About Driving. So I'll read it aloud. To my family, the time may come when I can no longer make the best decisions for the safety of others and myself. Therefore, to help my family make necessary decisions, this statement is an expression of my wishes and directions while I am still able to make these decisions. I've discussed with my family my desire to drive as long as it is safe for me to do so. When it's not reasonable for me to drive, I desire, and then you fill in the person's name, to tell me I can no longer drive. I trust my family with the necessary steps to prohibit my driving to ensure my safety and the safety of others while protecting my dignity. I think this is a really good something to have in place, and it's, you know, it's tangible. It's something you can see that we've agreed to and we've spoken about if someone has decreased insight or memory. And then ultimately, so what we do, or what I do at my company, we do comprehensive driving evaluations or assessments. And I'll kind of go into a little more, you know, what that entails. But that transition, you know, we're an unbiased third party. We do a really in-depth evaluation. So it's a good option to look into. You know, we are the specialists when it comes to driving in that field and any medical condition associated with driving or that could impact driving. So we're with the person for 3 hours, you know, it's a good referral source and it's an unbiased, and, you know, it could potentially help the dynamic and just the conversation and kind of get things moving along if there is issues or, you know, apprehensive. And so oftentimes what we see when someone gets a dementia diagnosis, I think from a loved one's standpoint, it's like either one extreme or the other. Someone will, you know, if someone runs a stop sign and they're like, no, wait, this is because of the dementia, and oh no, you're not safe anymore. Or the opposite side of the coin, right? We see, I don't even want to talk about it. I think they're unsafe, but I'm going to kind of let it happen and continue to happen, which I mean, both are not okay to do. So I think that's where it comes into play, like refer to that, you know, that third party unbiased source, like a driving rehab specialist. And then of course, talk about it as early as possible. But here are some other things to the driver warning signs to look out for. So driving too slow or too fast consistently is a good warning sign. Getting lost on familiar roads. So if your family member says, oh my gosh, I got lost today a couple times and I always go this way, you know, that's kind of a little red flag to be on the lookout for. Having a recent car accident or near misses. So maybe if they're pulling into a garage and they have a little scratch on the mirror or a dent from backing up, you know, into the garage. So something they're used to doing, but there's still these little warning signs to look out for. Having trouble parking or turning left. So I don't know if anyone's ever actually thought about this, but when people park, well, it's actually trickier to park to the right, but when turning left, you're usually crossing a lane of traffic. So if there's an unprotected left turn, that's going to be a higher level of skill involved to execute that. So that could be trickier. Receiving a traffic ticket or citation, running a red light or stop signs, showing up with new dents, using improper lanes improperly or improper lane changes, and then also co-piloting. So sometimes we see this where someone who has a dementia diagnosis or whose skills are impacted by a cognitive impairment, they will have a significant other who will kind of guide them and be their co-pilot or navigate them. But really with this progressive, you know, the progressive nature of dementia, what's going to happen is we will see those higher level skills, those executive skills that are required with driving, including reaction time, decision making, judgment. Those will be impaired. So even if a co-pilot is sitting here navigating you, saying, oh, it's safe to go now, or turn left here. Ultimately, it's those other skills, those higher level skills that are impacted and ultimately will not result in still not being safe enough, whether you have a co-pilot or not. So if someone is starting to rely on a co-pilot, you know, then that should go into question, you know, well, is this person still safe? You know, to begin with, or why isn't the co-pilot driving then versus the person, you know, impaired?
I saw a good one last night, no headlights on at 9 o'clock at night.
There you go. So again, best to, you know, start the conversation as early as possible and be aware of these warning signs and discuss those warning signs with the person too. Because maybe if they already have those ingrained in their mind, they might know already to look out for them and let you know or notify someone. And I think another good point as far as referring to a driving rehab specialist is, you know, what we want to do is preserve this independence with driving as long as possible. So we don't want, you know, someone to get into an accident and they say, oh, this person has a dementia diagnosis, boom, license taken away. Because then it might be too late, right? But what if that person does still have the skills that can allow them to drive safely or drive with a restriction, which we'll go into a little bit. So, you know, we don't want someone to get their license taken away too early when they could potentially still be driving. And on the flip side, we don't want, right, to endanger others or that person themselves or their loved ones. So again, that balance of independence and safety, you know, where to look at, read in between the lines. Okay, so then this is where I work, Driver Rehabilitation Center of Excellence. So as I said previously, we are driving rehab specialists and we're certified driving rehab specialists. So that's kind of the highest tier you can be, you know, in this field. So our organization is Association for Driver Rehabilitation Specialists. It's ADED, so that'll be on the last page. ADED.net is a really good place. You could just kind of enter your zip code there and find a CDRS, is what they're called, Certified Driving Rehab Specialist, close to you, to kind of pursue that evaluation option. And then our model is really unique in that we not only do all the clinical side, so we're occupational therapists as well, and occupational therapy assistants, but we also do the installation side. So if someone is recommended for auto adaptive equipment, that's something that we would determine upon evaluation and assessment, and we could modify the vehicle in our shop as well. So it's a really unique model. It's from A to Z, and we do passenger applications and maintenance as well as custom fabrication. So uniquely, you know, with us, there are certified driving rehab specialists, right over 300 throughout the country. So it is a small field. So we know all the ones within the DMV area and even more states. And typically what you'll see when you go to get a comprehensive driving evaluation is it's broken down into a clinical portion and then a behind the wheel portion. So with us, the clinical or component consists of several standardized assessments. So we're looking at how does your medical condition impact the skills or functions necessary for safe driving. So that can include reaction time, attention, you know, executive function, cognitive memory, reaction time. We do a basic vision screen, we do muscle strength testing, and several other components. Specifically with dementia, we're going to be looking at the cognitive component, a vision component, the executive skills, like I mentioned, or you can say like defensive driving skills, and then basic road knowledge and visual perceptual skills. So how's your brain perceiving or interpreting what you're seeing? So we'll kind of focus on those components when it comes to dementia or cognitive impairment. And so part of what we do also is navigate the process with the DMV. We are doing, I wouldn't say family counseling, but it does incorporate at the end of our evaluation. So after we spend time with doing clinical and standardized assessments with someone, we'll go out behind the wheel, in one of our vehicles. So we have a fleet of vehicles equipped with passenger safety brake. So yes, on the daily, I'm over there like pressing the brakes. But we like to, we want someone to come to us to have all of this justification, all of this information. Because whatever we recommend, it's a very, very thorough assessment that no one else has done before. Only a CDRS can do this. And then all the different things that we assess. So really, it's only a tool, it's a good tool for your toolkit and just justification as to why you should or are still safe to be driving, or why you may retire, may need to retire or look at, stopping driving or driving with limitations or restrictions. So, and then we end up, doing some counseling type at the end, because relationships could really be affected by this discussion, so it's a really good, put it on us. And the providers, seek us out, family members seek us out, caregivers, loved ones, because it is, right? Such a heavy conversation. So we're that unbiased third party that's just going to strictly focus on facts and skills assessed. So here are some of the results that our assessments could include. Resume driving, or someone's appropriate to continue, or seek out the DMV to consider next steps. Sometimes we see people that have their license suspended for whatever reason. Maybe they were reported anonymously. Maybe a other healthcare professional or doctor reported that person to the DMV because of a new diagnosis or because of progression with a neurological, condition. So sometimes we do see that someone's license is already suspended, and that's a requirement that's made from the DMV. And we'll kind of go a little more into that component with the DMV. It's called the medical review process. So sometimes we'll see that person and we'll say, yep, we looked thoroughly, right? We did this assessment and you're good to pursue and continue that process with the DMV to seek reinstatement of license. Drive with limitations is something I mentioned earlier. So that could include no nighttime driving, no highway. There could be a certain mile radius limit. So only like a 5 mile radius within your home address on your license. So that's a potential option. So as therapists, though, there are caveats, I think, with that restriction. So, what we're looking at is, okay, so someone only goes to the grocery store or to their doctor's office, right? So we may do that 5 mile limitation on their license. But we're also looking at, so within just that 5 mile radius, if there was an accident or road work, would this person still be able to navigate back to their house on an unfamiliar, route that might be presented to them? So, right, we're considering all of these options. So maybe someone like that, we would do what's called a follow-up drive, like in their neighborhood. And that would be included in the assessment, but that's at the discretion of the therapist, and strictly what we witnessed, as far as during the assessment in the clinical and behind the wheel component. Another option is driver training. So that's something else that we do. If someone had a new amputation, for instance, and they need auto adaptive equipment, that person may be an experienced driver, but are they experienced with this new piece of equipment? No. So that would be just an option to do some driver training until someone's confident with that equipment. So that's another option with us. And then, or the need for auto adaptive equipment, so that's kind of included. During the assessment, we would say, hey, this is the most conducive setup for you. This is what we're recommending. And I think a big benefit of our facility is we have an array of auto adaptive equipment options. I think some CRSs and, driving evaluation, or places that have driving evaluation options and a driver rehab program are kind of limited in what equipment they have. So it's like, hey, we tried this person, but we only have this hand control or this, piece of equipment. So this is what we're recommending. Whereas with us, we have you know, an array of equipment. We have several different hand controls, several different electronic hand controls, manual, mechanical hand controls. So we're trying this person out or trialing several different pieces of equipment, see what could be the best, you know, or most appropriate for that person. And sometimes we see people that they were recommended for something and we get them because we also do the install, and it's not the most conducive for them. Or now they have a shoulder issue because the hand control is in the wrong place, or it's the wrong type of hand control. So just something to consider. So and then ultimately stop driving or retire from driving could be a recommendation of ours. And so when we have someone come to us and they're going to undergo this evaluation, we do have them sign and say, you know, that they're authorizing, you know, the release of their information. If ethically we think that there is a safety concern, we do report it to the DMV. So we state that in our intake paperwork, that that is an option. But we would certainly notify someone before we were to do that. And that's not what we're seeking to do. We don't pass every report off to the DMV. You know, we want that person to remain, you know, we want it to be at their discretion, and, you know, maintain that kind of continuity and that independence and that, you know, that's the dignity. But of course, if there's a safety concern, then that's what we will send it into the DMV. Okay, so this is a little bit about the medical review process within the DMV. So Virginia is not a mandatory report state. So we were kind of talking a little bit about this yesterday, but so unfortunately it's not. And I kind of brought out some statistics too, because what that means is if you have any condition that could impact your driving whatsoever, you are not required to report it to the DMV. And in fact, so only, I think it says 12% of state physicians are required to report individuals who are cognitively or medically impaired to the DMV. It's only 12% of the states, and Virginia is not one of them. So, and then 50% of the remaining states encourage or allow physicians to report, but do not make it mandatory. So Virginia is one of those states, it's not mandatory. So the physicians are you know, encouraged to do so. Doesn't always happen. I'm pretty sure there needs to be a lot more education on the process. I think the medical review and like the whole DMV and their process is semi-archaic in a sense, because I think it, you know, really needs to be kind of reevaluated and updated. But did you mention? Oh, and so you know, once someone does get reported, say a physician sends in, you know, a report for a new diagnosis of dementia or anything, right, that could impact, and they don't feel like that person is safe anymore potentially to drive, they get put under what's called a medical review process. And this, they get a case specifically assigned to the medical advisory board. So it's a separate board portion of the DMV. And they have their own healthcare professionals and physicians like reviewing these reports and kind of assessing and planning out these cases. So typically when someone gets reported or like flagged under that process, they will have certain, you know, processes and steps to complete. Otherwise they're at risk for suspension. So usually, you know, a police officer could even do it after an accident report, or anyone, you know, a caregiver or loved one anyone can report someone anonymously. If someone pulls out in front of me or makes a improper and unsafe lane change in front of me and I get their tag number, I can report them anonymously to the DMV. And this person will get flagged and get put under this process. So typically what that means is the very first thing that the medical advisory board will do is they'll want that person's physician to fill out what's called a customer medical report, or Med 2. And then there's also a Med 4 component, which is a vision component. So say it's post-stroke and you have some hemianopsia or, you know, some vision concerns, they'll take it, excuse me, they'll take it a step further and refer someone to an ophthalmologist or a neuro-ophthalmologist. So they'll have to complete that portion of it. because the state of Virginia has very strict requirements when it comes to vision. So same with, if someone comes to us and they've had, a history of anything visual or recent changes in vision, we will, kind of quote the vision requirements from the DMV for the state of Virginia, and potentially refer them to an ophthalmologist or an optometrist first before they come see us, because what we do is a basic vision screen, but at the end of the day, we're not ophthalmologists or optometrists. So, and I think I even have like a picture of it here. So this is an actual image of, what you see when you go to the DMV website and type in medical review process or customer medical report, it will pull this up. And so for level, there are a few diagnoses or conditions such as vision changes, like I said, seizures are one, loss of motor function, loss of consciousness. And it even says here that you have to report it, but you really don't in the state of Virginia. It's self-report, so you don't actually have to. But physicians are kind of told to follow this process if somebody has, one of these conditions, to report it, because there's very strict requirements. You're not supposed to drive within 6 months of having a seizure. But who's regulating this if someone doesn't report it? So. And then, so like I mentioned, the customer medical report will most likely they'll want you to fill that out. And then some other options, usually with a cognitive impairment, they may have someone retake the knowledge or kind of like the permit test, so the road signs, the basic road knowledge. They might have someone redo that test. Again, a little archaic. The last time I looked at something like that, the Virginia driver's manual, well, in my profession, I've looked at it more often, right? But when's the last time you looked at the Virginia driver's manual?
Also in your long-term memory, so you would think they would pass it anyway.
Yeah. Well, yes, that's true, but. Yeah. So they may have someone, retake the knowledge portion of the test, and then, or undergo a CDRS evaluation. So that would be us anyway. So like I said, we do see a lot of these people who are under this process. And then it's up to their discretion. So typically we would see someone with a suspended license. They have this report filled out and they're like, well, now I have to come to you. So with our report and the physician's report collectively, the DMV will decide what to do from there. I always put it as a disclaimer. We do not take licenses. We do not reinstate licenses. That's the DMV. That's up to their, that's their decision. And then going back to, I kind of skipped over a little bit here. When we're looking at during a comprehensive driving evaluation with someone that has a diagnosis of dementia, we're really looking at, we're kind of breaking the driving down into 3 different components. And Melissa, you said ingrained in your long-term memory. So one of the main components, so one of the first few components is just operating a vehicle. Can someone operate the vehicle safely? So that skill is likely not impacted with someone with dementia. We usually don't see that skill impacted, just the basic operating of the vehicle. It's like saying your ABCs almost, right? Now you've been doing this for so long, so that's rarely going to be impacted. Maybe a warning sign might be to look out for someone forgot to put on their seatbelt, or turn the lights on. But the basic, steering, gas, and brake are rarely going to be impacted. We rarely see that. And then the second component would be, the cognitive and the vision aspects. That one's obviously affected and something we're going to be looking out for with someone with a dementia diagnosis. And then the third is kind of, I already touched on it, those executive skills, right? Those decision making, the reaction time, judgment. So those executive skills or defensive driving, right? Are you going to make sure you look in the blind spot every time? Now, are you going to be able to really turn your head and operate the vehicle and steer and maintain your lane when you're already nervous about, what's going on around you? Or, right, and like the processing speed. Say you see somebody driving 10 miles under the speed limit. Like that person's now a hindrance. Now that's a safety concern. That would be a warning flag. Because really what's happening is that processing speed, that individual is slowing down to the point where they can actually, receive the input that they're getting or the information that they're getting and process it at their level. So yeah, that's another warning sign, but that's really what we would, be looking out for. And so, again, though, the best is to kind of start this conversation as early as possible so that we can actually, look thoroughly at someone and their skills and see where those skills are at on their journey of driving. Because if something were to happen, and Melissa kind of brought up, I mean, these insurance companies, they're privately owned, so they can make whatever decision they want. They can decide to insure someone for whatever reason or not. But ultimately, right, if someone gets pulled over and they have a dementia diagnosis, you're gonna wanna say, oh, it's that person's fault. And that could be, I think labeled as potential discrimination if so, but at least if you refer, you've got this assessment, you have all this justification, like, hey, no, I was assessed. I'm good. Or I sent this into the DMV, I'm under medical review, but I'm good. I have to be assessed annually, but I just got this report done, or this evaluation done. And I have all this information as to why I am still safe. It's a good tool, a good backup to have. All right, and then I kind of listed just all the resources, what I thought would be good resources. So again, our Association for Driving Rehabilitation Specialists is the ADA there, and then I can have Melissa send this out to everyone. AARP is on there, is really good. AOTA has some good resources for driving as well. That's American Occupational Therapy Association. And then I put the Hartford on there, of course, and then a link to the Virginia DMV website, specifically that medical review process page. And then the Maryland DMV and NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. I can go back to also, I have read you guys the statistics for the states that are mandatory report or not. But just for Virginia, there is only one requirement, and it's a vision test for those who are, for anyone 80 or older. That's the only thing that they require for someone to take. So there's not really like a check-in if you think, oh, my, their license is just going to expire in a couple months and that'll be fine. So they'll automatically renew. It's every 8 years, but they don't, they're not checking, they're not doing anything further to investigate whether those skills or whether that person is still, has those skills necessary to drive safely. So, again, I think it's unfortunate because then it falls on the family, the loved ones, the community. So, really explore these resources and, please reach out to me if you have any questions. I kind of left my information there. Do you have any questions, please?
It might not matter either way, but do you feel that it's better to have a evaluation done through your company before, a medical professional gets, a person gets to the point where a medical professional has to flag them? Does it matter?
I think that's up to you guys, to the family and to the loved ones, because I think if you've already yourself been seeing warning signs potentially, or to the point where a physician who's only seeing this person for a short, small window of time, that person may already be at a point to where if we assess them, it may already be, a little too late, but so it just depends. And then it's really tough because once someone does get put under that process, that medical review process, you're already in the system, but now you're in like a different system. So there are going to be closer, it's a closer watch on you, maybe more stuff you have to keep up with, maybe an annual review that you would have to do. But that could be a good thing, right? If someone's at a certain point where their skills are starting to be impacted. But I would say before that, it might be, if you notice things, I would say maybe pursue the evaluation, because you know, we're the ones that are gonna be thoroughly assessing it and can kind of give you from A to Z what we saw and what we recommend. And sometimes that would include, you know, not undergoing the process with the DMV yet. You know, and then that report can go to the doctor as well, saying, oh, hey, I did get this. I was a little concerned maybe that they sent him, you know, pretty good. And so usually they agree with us, you know, because we're seeing that person for a very long amount of time, you know.
When, if there's something where like you get a restriction in some way, does the DMV typically then give a recommendation or give like dictate when that has to be followed up, or if at all, do they follow up once a restriction has, especially with something that's progressive like dementia, where it is going, things are going to change? Is there any part of that that says, okay, now it's yearly, or it's like, you know, biannually or something?
Right. Yeah, so, well, that's something we'll include in our report too.
Okay.
And usually, you know, the physician will agree with us, and then the DMV will typically take our recommendations as well and hold it, you know, pretty heavily. It weighs heavily. So along with a restriction of ours, you know, if there is any cognitive concern or, you know, cognitive impairment concern, then that person would most likely be on some type of review for us. We would want to see them maybe annually or something like that if we knew, right? Because we're, as occupational therapists by trade, we're looking at someone very holistically. And so we understand more of that medical condition and then how it could impact the driving. So usually with anything cognitive, we want to stay on top of it, you know? And then if, like I said, if we're at a point of concern, that'll kind of go, then we'll send it to the DMV. But that's just another way of staying on top of it and keep holding that person accountable, you know, so that it really is safest possible resolution. Yeah, but that'll be in our recommendations too sometimes. So it just depends, but the DMV will look at our recommendations and do that, you know. They have to where they have an annual review option too, and so that's something that they can implement as well. So that's probably already on our report.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean you go to another CDRS and they may not put it, you know, so. But I think that's something that we're very conscientious of and try to implement, you know, we're unbiased, we're for the safety of all. And so as much as we want to, you know, help and keep someone as independent as possible, as long as possible, like, you know, with dementia, right? It's gonna be when does that time come? And unfortunately, it will come. So ultimately, it's the safety. We're concerned about the safety of everyone.
Does health insurance cover this?
Good question. So most insurance companies don't deem driving medically necessary and will not cover. However, our company, right, so we're not affiliated with any hospital systems, so we're strictly private pay. So the cost of our evaluation is $800. We do have older driver grants is what we have now. We're exploring more grants and more grant opportunities. There's so much money out there. So we're working on that, but we do have a grant available currently for people ages 65 and older. And so that is something to, you know, ask about, definitely ask about that if you're scheduling with us. But there are other driving rehab programs that are affiliated with hospital systems, such as, you know, Inova used to have one, they don't anymore, but I know at like Mount Vernon, they do have still occupational therapy evaluations. So that occupational therapist could do potentially the clinical portion of what we do. So do some of the same standardized assessments that could potentially translate to, you know, if that person wanted to continue with it behind the wheel, they could come to us for the second portion. You know, we would just ask it, you know, that report and see if that will suffice for what we would do in the clinic. So it could reduce the cost if you've already worked with another occupational therapist and done that. So if that's something someone wanted to explore, I always advise people when they call, oh, that's just too much. And I'm like, well, are you affiliated with, I know, or whatever, ask if they can do some of this assessment first and then have it be covered. And then you can call us back and do the behind the wheel portion. So, I mean, we're not in the business for money. So we work a lot with our partner, our community OTs. So we do get a lot of referrals from other practices and hospital systems because they know what we're looking for. And they've already done some of those assessments so that it could reduce the costs for the client when they do come to us.
Anybody have any?
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for coming. She's gonna give me a copy of the slides. I will send those out as well, because I know we can't see everything on the screen.
Yeah.
But thank you all for being a part of this, and thank you for coming out. And if you guys have any further questions, you can always contact her or me, and we can make sure that you get the information that you need. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Amanda. What great information. A couple of ways you can support Insight is through IRA and other gifts, monthly donations, and workplace giving. You can always go to insightmcc.org/donate. We have two fundraising events. We have our Spring Legacy Breakfast that just finished up. And in October, we have our Paintings and Pairings Insight Gala. You can always look at these at insightmcc.org/events. Some of our upcoming events. In July, we have care partner training with Parkinson's dementia. We have Dementia 101, Better Brain Health. And in August, we're going to bring on some care partner training about brain health and exercise. We also have normal aging and dementia and memory screenings in August, along with a caregiver boot camp in September. We look forward to seeing you at all these upcoming events. Feel free to go to insightmcc.org/events to sign up for any of these upcoming things. If you need to reach Amanda Mendez, here's her information at the Chantilly Rehab Driving Program. And thank you again, Amanda, for coming.